Okay, so it's been a bit since I've actually done a video, and folks have asked me a couple of different questions about if you were to live here in Tacoma, would you need a vehicle? Or even in Seattle, would you need a vehicle? And I have went over that a little bit more in detail about Seattle because obviously we had spent most of our time since we lived here in Washington. Most of our time has been in Seattle, but now obviously we have a house down here in Tacoma, so most of our time obviously is down here. And all of what we do in terms of work and shopping and everything is down here. We don't really have to go up to Seattle at all, unless it is extenuating circumstances for business or what have you. But to answer your question, it really and truly depends. There are people who survive on no car at all and have done so for many, many years. It really and truly depends on how much of a headache that you want to deal with. And by headache, I mean in terms of parking is going to be a challenge. The licensing is going to be a challenge in terms of your annual fees that you have to pay in terms of car tabs. The year of your vehicle is going to be a big factor in terms of the cost it takes every year to put the tabs on, the number of vehicles that you have. Seattle, this area, because there's such a restrictive amount of space to build in, you get the sense that basically folks don't want you to have a car. I mean, the government doesn't want you to have a vehicle. Not that they're saying that, but literally you pay for it, right? Unlike other places. Now, it's not as bad as Hong Kong, where they basically, you have such a small space, you have a ton of people, and so they literally make cars double the price and all this. It's not like that here. But basically, vehicle tabs are really and truly calculated pretty hard. The newer the vehicle, the more expensive it is to actually get your tabs. The older the car, so if your car is 10 years older or more, then the less it costs to actually get the car tabs. And I'm talking about the little sticker on the back that tells you the year. It's less expensive. However, you have to pay for emissions tests. Okay, so no matter where you live in the entire state, you still have to actually get an emissions test done, I believe. I could be wrong on that one. But according to what the lady told me, you would have to. I know that in Pierce County, which is Tacoma, you have to. In Seattle, you definitely have to. So a breakdown of kind of what mine is. I'm not going to tell you the actual fees, but they're pretty pricey. Well, I'll tell you the fees. I don't care. The license fee to fund roads and construction and maintenance projects, $30. Now we only have one car because there's really no purpose for us to have two vehicles, and we've done that for 5, 6 years now. We've done well. Here, it'll kill you to have more than one car. There's people that do it, but it is expensive. Not only is it expensive to insure, but the car tabs is another thing. Insurance is brutal and that depends really where you are. I can tell you one thing, down in Tacoma, accidents happen all the time. I mean, I can tell you that. I've never been in an accident before until I lived here in Tacoma. They happen all the time. It's just, and I think because there's so many people on the roads, and that some of these roads were not designed for that many people, that much speed, etc., etc. But they happen all the time. If you look at vehicles around the area, you just see dings in the cars. The only other place I remember being like that was Cleveland, Ohio. When I went up there and visited and stayed for a while, people told me the same thing. Oh, you'll see a lot of cars with dings on it because it's just so many people in such a small space. But vehicle weight fee funds the highway improvement, transit, and other transportation needs. So again, this is going to pretty much kind of vary, but it's $25 in my case. Filing fee goes to the county in which the fee is paid. That's $3. Service fee retained by subagent or funds the ferry replacement If it needs to be renewed, $5. The license service fee supports the computer system is 25 cents. 50 cents for the Department of Licensing service fee to support the computer system and reimbursement of the county licensing activities. And then this one is from Seattle because I didn't update it in time. Seattle, this fee in Seattle is the highest in the state. Tacoma's is a little bit less. I don't know exactly about how much, but they're supposed to tell me later. But it's called TBD Seattle, and it's $80. So it doesn't really tell you anything. It's just $80. And then the Regional Transit Authority, $82. That's what you're paying for. So for us, $225 for a car, plus we have to do an emissions test on the car. So that is one of the reasons why $225 every single year to basically get the actual sticker for a car. And my car is a 2008, so that gives you an idea. If you have a car that's newer than that, those fees are going to be much, much, much higher. Much higher. And if you have more than one car, you can kind of see where that goes. Not only that, insurance is pretty high as well. And then you also have to deal with parking, which is very expensive here. Tacoma doesn't have as much of an issue in terms of parking, but still in this area, parking is not as good when you're talking about Seattle, especially. And it's hard to find as well. And then, of course, insurance, which is going to go all over the place. So, can you survive without a vehicle? You can. Obviously, the closer you are to downtown, the better, because you have so many different options, and everything is just right there. So, for example, if you are in Tacoma, then you have that entire area is loaded with buses. So along Commerce Street, tons of buses meet through there. The streetcar runs through there, or they call it light rail. And then at the Tacoma Dome area, which is going to have Amtrak stops there, you have the big Sounder commuter train that goes all the way down, eventually to DuPont, all the way up to Seattle. And then from there, you can go from Seattle all the way up to Everett. Then eventually the light rail line, which runs semi-subway line as well, but runs from Seattle to Bellevue to Everett eventually, all the way throughout Seattle, all the way down to here eventually. Will connect there as well. So you have everything. Hold on. All right, I'm back. I had a couple of phone calls there, so I apologize. The final one being Noelle. So chick's crazy, but anyhow, she pretty funny. So I forgot exactly where I was with this, but anyhow, cars expensive here. You can definitely get around without it. As I mentioned, the closer you are to downtown in either Seattle or Tacoma or even Bellevue, the better off you're going to be. So there are transit centers in various different places. Here, for example, Parkland has a transit center. I'm not sure if Spanaway does. Lakewood, I believe, has a transit center. So you have places where you can literally get to, and then it will take you directly where you got to go. South Tacoma has a what's it called? A Sounder stop. So in this area, you're pretty good. It's just that downtown, you have a whole lot of connectability, and it makes things a whole lot easier. In Seattle, you have the streetcar system, you have the light rail system, you have, of course, buses throughout the area, the rapid ride buses, which will take you to many different areas. From Ballard, there's a rapid ride line. Up through Greenwood, there's a rapid ride line, kinda. It's in Greenwood, kinda. So you can do without a vehicle in both places. The only place that's difficult in terms of bigger areas that would be difficult for right now without a car is Bellevue. Bellevue, however, is getting the East Lake or east side. Can't remember what they call it, but basically the light rail line is going to be built all the way over to Bellevue, Redmond, those places, Mercer Island. And what's really cool about this is that the train will actually be on a floating bridge. To get from Seattle to Bellevue, you don't have to, but typically a lot of people take the floating bridge, and this is a concrete bridge sitting on the lake, and it's literally floating. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So recently Sound Transit got this huge acknowledgement because they're building the largest and longest floating train bridge. So literally that will connect, and they're building it as we speak. They're also tunneling underneath Bellevue. Actually, they're doing the cut and cover where they actually cut through the earth basically, and then they build the subway station, and then they cover it with dirt and soil and everything else. It's a lot cheaper than the machine that actually bores through. Anyway, you don't care about that. So anyway, Bellevue downtown will actually have a small subway section which will connect you all the way into Seattle and then all the way onto the airport or wherever you want to go. Some of the other places, Issaquah is also a little bit more challenging if you don't have a vehicle, but again, eventually they will also be connected to the light rail line. So could you survive in this area without a vehicle? Yes. Places like Everett is also very complicated. Of course, there's buses that will take you there, but you got to think of it this way. Those buses have to use I-5 to get up to Linwood and also up into Everett and every other point in between. They do have the bus-only lines, or basically it's the HOV lanes, what they're using. But still, those get backed up because there's a lot of cars that use that as well. As long as you have another person in the car with you, then you're able to use it. Another adult in the car with you, you're able to use it. So those lines do get backed up. Eventually, light rail will actually connect all of that. As we speak right now, light rail is connecting up into Northgate, if you're familiar with Seattle. So that will be finished next, and then they're going to connect that all the way up to Linwood, and so then that section will be connected all the way into downtown and so on and so forth. So could you get away without a vehicle? Yes, you could. You have to be strategic. You have to think really hard about it. You may want a small car to kind of get you to the grocery store and to do things like that, which is kind of what we do too. We really don't use the car much other than for those types of things. However, because Noelle is so close to her job, we just basically drive her to work and back. But could she theoretically take the bus? Yeah, it's a very short ride, literally, from here to there. Back in the day, I actually walked in Seattle from my house down to Greenwood and back. It was about 5 miles. That's less than it takes to actually get from our house to downtown. So anyhow, hope that gives you a little bit of information. I know it was all over the place and kind of talking about the expense part of it, which kind of goes into it. You have to think about that. Parking's going to be an issue. The license, getting the tags is going to be pricey depending upon the vehicle that you have. You have emissions tests. Insurance is pretty hard. So all of those things come into play. And if you have an apartment, you have to think of the parking spaces that you have to pay for. Yes, here you have to pay for your parking. So you pay for each vehicle. Some places may give you a parking spot for free, but anything after the first one you have to pay for. So keep that in mind as well. It's a completely different animal here when you're trying to actually park. It's that way in parts of California as well. Anyhow, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, obviously make sure that you put them down in the comment box below or send us an email. That's pretty much it. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.